All right, welcome back to the Success Money Marriage Podcast. I'm Steve Siebold.
And I'm Dawn Siebold.
Yes, you are, and we appreciate you guys listening.
We stayed together after last week, which I thought was pretty
cool. I thought I was a little worried. I thought it was a little on the 38 years. I'm thinking, here's the rocks right here, because I had my helmet. And then when we were done with the show, I got the helmet back on, and she's smacking me around like an Amber Heard situation. I didn't know what was going on.
I was just probably glad that Amber didn't call after that last podcast.
Well, it's funny you mentioned because Amber did call.
She did not.
No, I waited for the show to tell you this. She called.
She did not.
Okay, she didn't call, but she Facebook messaged me.
No, she didn't. Stephen.
Well, she didn't Facebook message me exactly, but
what exactly did
you don't
happen?
Understand enough about the internet. You wouldn't even understand what she did.
I see.
But she is contact. She's reaching out to me.
Okay,
she's trying to pull me in.
You're as close. Like she knows guys who are named Steve. That's about as close as you are right now.
Okay, but that's a smaller group than all the names. So I'm making progress. Don't discourage me. I'm making progress.
We're talking about.
Demotivate me.
Go back and watch. Go back and listen to our last episode. You'll feel it.
I really like her. But anyway, I think she'd be tough to be married to, though. So I'm thinking about that.
I think you're going to be tough not having $100 million to be married to. Not sure
I need some more cash.
I think you're going to need a little bit more income for her.
Yeah, a lot more income. Absolutely, yeah. So today we wanted to talk about this book. I was on Good Morning America one time, and this lady was on not too far after me. Her name's Pamela Haag. I think it's Haag, H-A-A-G. And it's a really good book. It's a few years ago. But it's her premise is kind of, the way I understood the premise was, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years. This is sort of her premise is she's sort of rewriting, or she thinks the rules of marriage should be rewritten for the 21st century. She thinks it's outdated because, marriage is a 400-year-old construct. It's a religious construct. And I should say that I'm glad I mentioned that. For our religious friends, I really I should say it in context in that, we've talked about one of the books I wrote, was Sex, Politics, Religion, a book that I wrote about 10 years ago. We interviewed some people who called what they called it a God-centered marriage. In other words, everything was based on their faith and their belief in God, and so they follow those kinds of
and God came first
framework, and God came first with everything. So they pray and that type of thing, and their faith kind of guides their marriage. So if you're that, and that's fine, and if you're that person, you probably don't want to watch a show because it's probably going to offend you, because this is a way of looking at things more in a secular point of view, in terms of saying, marriage this is the premise of the book. Marriage is a construct. It's a religious construct, but it's still a construct that sort of forms the foundation of society, modern society, as well as, society of the past. It's about a 400-year-old, maybe 500-year-old institution.
Yeah, and our intent is not to
offend.
It's just to have a conversation and to keep an open mind. But again, this is not a session to offend anybody.
No, this is that. I mean, that's all this podcast is about. I mean, if we were really experts, we've been married for a long time, obviously almost 40 years, but that doesn't make us experts.
No, not at all.
We screw up all the time. So it's not that. It really just to open up a conversation. It's usually me, exactly. Oh my God, I'm
so happy you admitted that live on the air. That's the first step.
I just don't know what to do with you. I just don't know what to even do. See, you're always hitting me like that. You're like an Amber hurting me. You're Amber hurting me. No, it didn't feel like a love touch. I'm bruising right now. I'm bruising.
Take a picture.
Take a picture.
Might be worth something someday.
I'm going to sue you for $50 million.
Might not be, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, we thought this book was pretty interesting. Again, if you depending on the way you see marriage in the world and all those kinds of things, it probably would affect you differently. But I thought it was pretty interesting because she comes up, she cites a lot of different experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, marriage counselors, etc., and thought leaders around this and on this topic to basically say, here's what's going on, and in her opinion, here's what's going on in marriage in these other people's opinion, and here's the way it should be rewritten. So what I thought I would do is and I know this book a little bit better than Dawn because I read the whole thing, and I don't think you read the actual book, the whole thing, but there's some cool things in here I thought you guys might be interested in, and so I'm going to just read a couple of and I recommend the book, Marriage Confidential, Pamela Haag. I'm sure you can pick it up on Amazon. I've had it for a couple of years. It is a really good read. Again, as long as it doesn't offend you, which it might, depending on your belief system. But okay, so I'm just going to read a couple of these to you and just see what you think and see what you guys think as we go along here. There's over 1 million divorces that happen in the United States each year, in the U.S. alone each year. Okay, so obviously marriage is not you can't really say it's super successful as an institution.
No.
A lot of divorces, so I mean, that right there sort of lends itself to looking at different ideas.
And that actually doesn't take account for the people who are unhappily married, but because of their faith will not get divorced.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in arranged marriages, which happen all over the world. I mean, it's a lot of marriages. A majority of marriages worldwide are arranged. And people don't get divorced. So you're miserable, you stay married.
You work it out.
You work it out. How do you work it out if you're miserable?
I don't know.
A guy has to wear a football helmet or a motorcycle helmet around all the time, fearing for his life. That's a pretty tough deal,
You get used to it.
Yeah, I've gotten used to the helmet. Okay. But, so this is pretty interesting, I found. So this Paul Amato is a marriage researcher, I guess, and he says that most divorces, about 60%, are what he calls low conflict, low stress, unhappy marriages. In other words, they're not toxic in the way that a Johnny Depp and a Amber Heard are going at each other, throwing things, one's got their finger cut off, and supposedly all these different things where they are going at each other. It's where what he explains in this is it's most people get divorced because they're just unhappy, but it's not like they hate the person, they're just not really overly happy. Low stress, low conflict. And so my question to you is, so what's your take on that? Do you think someone should get divorced if they're in that situation, or is that, again, minus the religious affiliation?
I think that there's, at least in the United States, and probably maybe mostly in the South where I grew up, there's so much pressure to be married that I would step back away from that for just a couple of minutes and say, I'm going to be happier when I get married. Okay, so we're just average people. We're not famous. We're, like you just were saying, we're not Johnny Depp and Amber. And there's so much pressure to get married that should solve all the problems. It's going to solve you being happy. You're going to be able to start a family. For women, it may be even to the extent that you're going to be taken care of. And that is the solution, society's solution, in my opinion, to happiness. That, you can't be happy being a single person. You can't be happy being a single mom. You can't be happy being gay. You can't be happy being transgender. So, statistically, that's your happiness. And then when you get in there and it's just boredom every day, you're not excited. You were waiting for that person to make you happy because that's what we're told. And then when you're not happy, you're not happy, but you're not happy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not, I think the expectation that when you get married, now all of a sudden this person is supposed to be making you happy because that's the way you grew up or brainwashed or however you want to say it. And all of a sudden you get married and, 2 or 3, it's fun for the first year, because it's new and it's exciting. And then the second year, maybe you have children and that's fun and exciting. But these lulls that relationships get in, I think is the expectation that you're supposed to be making me happy because that's why I married you.
Right. In every way.
Every
single aspect of life.
This is it.
Your
for the
spouse
rest
is
of your
supposed
life.
to make you happy.
Yeah, this is it.
And you have to, because otherwise,
partnership, sexually, emotionally, maturity. I mean, all of it.
Business-wise, in a case of people in business
especially
together.
for our listeners. In every way. And I think it's the expectation that's set up with society that says this is it. So I don't think you have to have that excitement in the big grandiose lifestyle. It's the average person who goes to work every day, who comes home every day and going, I'm not happy, and this was supposed to make me happy.
So what do? They get divorced?
They get divorced.
You do? You think so?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, but I think it's the expectation going into the relationship or going into the business that you're going to go, okay, again, like especially going into business, you and I have partnered with people, who had an expertise in an area, who've had success in an area, and we're like, okay, this would be a good partnership because it looked like that would be what we're lacking. So we would partner with people with things that we lacked and thought that was going to be a great marriage. And I think, people go into marriages thinking the same thing, that, okay, I need support, I need help, I need someone that's going to be there. I lack this, and that's going to solve it. And then when you get married after a couple of years, you realize, I probably should have been a little more self-sufficient.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and I the thing is that divorce, in at least in American society, and then other places around the world, of course, is obviously frowned upon, and you're seen as a failure. in that particular area. And I think that's completely wrong.
Me too.
It's like dropping out of college if college is not for you. You know, we were sort of sold during our time. Now, I don't know if it's really like that now.
Oh, yeah. You got to go to school.
Well, you got to go to school. In our town, if you didn't go to college, it's like, what do you mean you're not going to? I don't understand. What would you do if you didn't go to college? I mean, and a lot of people, like they say now, should go to vocational schools. They should do something else.
Or be entrepreneurs.
Or do anything. Be something else. I mean, do what they do. Follow, their interests and their passions. But my point is that society sets it up as a construct where it's like, this is what you do. You go to school, you get married, you have kids, and you live happily ever after. And if you don't do that, you're putting yourself on the outside and you're almost ostracized, in society, especially back then. That's changing probably now. And that's her point in this book is that, look, these rules should be rewritten. I mean, these are 500-year-old rules, and we're following something that's effectively archaic. I mean, and it really it doesn't have a great success track record. And when you what you just said a second ago, that you get married. And I'm not against marriage, but I'm just saying that on the other side of it.
Good thing.
Well, but I think it should be.
I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, but it's not about us.
We still might be here next week then.
Yeah, well, that's a possibility. If Amber doesn't take your, Amber's looking at the job. She's looking at the job.
She is not.
Sought me out on Facebook. Message.
She has.
Steve's.
Yeah.
Steve's.
So for all you wives out there, I'm just going to keep going with this theory. This.
Amber.
I know.
She's really cute.
Anyway, I'm sure she would love you.
I'm going to get probably past it.
Okay.
But right now I'm going
to support you, whatever you can.
But watch her on TV. It's kind of hard.
I know you're going through a hard time.
I can't see her. I can't talk to her.
I know you're going through a hard time.
See her on TV.
I know.
I'm longing for her.
Longing.
So, but my point is that when you said a second ago, I'm pining. That's the word I wanted. I'm pining for Amber.
Okay, glad you're a writer.
I wonder if she knows this.
And you're a writer.
Does she know this?
Yes, Stephen.
She doesn't know.
I don't. She doesn't know. She would come running if she did.
Well, yeah, in the bikini, like on the beach, like Pamela Anderson, who I used to have a thing for too. Anyway, that's my own issues. I'll take that up with my therapist. Okay. All right. But seriously, when you said a second ago about, that, you married this person and now the person, I like the way you put it, is almost responsible in a sense to make you happy for the rest of your life in all the areas of aspects of life. Especially you think about you and I never had kids, but I can't even imagine, with all the stuff you and I have been through as a married couple, but also then in business, which makes it more complicated. People with kids who are married and in business, I don't know how they do that. That's like Superman level, right? That's Tom Cruise level, Top Gun Maverick.
I agree,
level.
But I think everything that you're talking about now, let's let our listeners know this is, June 1st of June, 2022.
3rd of June.
3rd of June,
missed 2 days.
2022. That's all changing. I think now with the internet and access to content and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all the social media. Did you join MySpace yet? I want you to join my MySpace.
I'm on the line.
I'm on the
line.
Interweb. I'm on the interweb.
I'm on the interweb.
I think that the younger people are now. I mean, you're seeing more and more of my friends who have children and grandchildren that age. They're traveling the country in a Kia. I mean, just to get away, and they're not following that tradition that we grew up in.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that the generations that are growing up now that are in their early 20s or late teens are seeing the mistakes that their parents and grandparents made and going, and I'm not going to fall for someone just to come in and really, literally, we grew up with Cinderella and the prince is going to show up on the white horse. It sounds stupid now,
but we did.
I know. But I'm waiting for my prince on the white horse to pick me up and save me.
Right. Well, we didn't have access to information.
Not at all.
When teacher, think about. We're crowding 60, so we're getting up there. But at the same time, it's almost like it was 200 years ago because we didn't have access to anything. What your minister told you, what your teachers told you, what your coaches told you, that was basically
even your older brothers and sisters. You and I are the youngest in our families,
right?
And so all my sisters got married right out of high school. Some were right out of high school. None of them went to college right out of high school. That's just not what we did. I know it was common in your family, maybe because you guys were all boys.
Depending on where you lived,
but in the South, you get married and you have kids.
And your socioeconomic status.
You get married and you have kids. And you support your husband and you make a good family. And that for a woman, for years we would go back and it's like, how well do you cook? How good is your husband being taken care of?
What happened to you with the cooking? Because let's talk about that first, because that's still kind of...
I would grab your helmet.
I haven't seen you cook. It's been 38 years and I'm still waiting.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
You're not bad with soup. That's all I've seen.
Out of a can?
So far. Out of a can.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. I can put that. I can do that. Pff, yeah. Would you like some soup for dinner? I can cook up some soup out of a can.
No, thank you. But thanks for asking. But that's as much of the cooking as I've seen you do. So are you waiting? Are you like holding back for this big show when we hit 40 years of marriage? Or I mean, did you miss that class?
Well, what about you cooking? Guys cook all the time. I have not seen you cook either. That's not the deal we had. You were supposed to cook. You can't even grill. I mean, what kind of guy can't grill?
I can grill.
No, you can't.
I have a grill.
You have a grill? Have you ever grilled on it?
Pushed it around a little bit.
Okay.
I put it together.
Oh, God, that's what's happened. Okay. What are you? Oh, my God. Please don't
I always
grill.
have extra parts.
Please don't grill.
Why do they give you extra parts? I always have extra parts.
I think we need to sum this one up. I really do think that it comes from expectations before you get married. And I think the reason that they're average and like, what is average, right? But, I mean, I think it's people that are not the high strung and there's not a lot of tension and there's not a lot of stress. It's the person that is just saying, hey, you know what? I was sold a red couch. I wanted a red couch. I got a blue one, come to find out.
Yeah, darn. What do I do now?
Right.
Yeah.
So
okay, one more before there's a whole. This book is really good. It's really worth reading.
We'll do some more.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I want to do one more though before we go. Okay, so you'll love this. If you remember Dr. Laura, I don't know if she's still on. I don't watch much TV. We don't watch traditional TV like we used to. But I don't know if anyone does. But Dr. Laura, you know, she made a fortune doing that show, and she was pretty rough. But here's what she said. She's asserted, it says in this book, that all men truly want from women. Now wait for it. Is sex and someone to make them a sandwich. I mean, actually, I'm not crazy about Dr. Laura, but I would like a sandwich.
And I'd like some sex. So I think that
How about sex in a sandwich?
I think that could go. You can have the sandwich.
That was good.
Want the sex.
That was good.
Thanks.
Good on you.
No,
that was a good one. I'm
actually being serious. I mean, who would not want someone that just cooks for them and has sex? Well, that would be a perfect relationship if you ask me.
All right, well, here's what
and you don't have to, maybe go into business with them if you have, too much sex and you need to take a break, but.
Wait, what kind of sandwich are we talking about here?
I don't care about the sandwich.
Ham sandwich?
No, I don't care. Tuna fish.
Okay.
I know.
Nice.
I know that's your favorite.
I like it. Subway.
I know that's your favorite.
I like it. Okay, so here's what she says. She says, there are terms for women who provide these services. Prostitute and maid. She's pretty rough. In addition to wanting sex in a sandwich, the men I knew also had, this is the author coming through. The author disagrees with this, obviously. But so my question is that what do you think when men want a sex in a sandwich? Is it that simple, or is there more to it?
I think it probably, not just for men, but for women too. I think it could come down to the basics of going, okay, bottom line.
Is that why people get married?
She's not saying that's why they get married.
Oh, yeah, that's what she said.
Men get married.
Not the author.
Okay, but why
Dr.
would you
Laura.
have to get married to have sex in a sandwich?
Go to Subway, get a sandwich. I'm halfway there. I'm 50% done.
It would be a lot cheaper if Johnny Depp knew he could just get sex in a sandwich by just paying for it, not having to marry
call Amber up and say, just bring me a sandwich, and then we'll have the sex.
But you don't have to get married. Don't have to get married.
And then come back next Tuesday.
Don't have to have a sandwich and sex to get
This is a perfect arrangement.
I didn't get the point.
This is genius, is what that would be.
I did not.
And then now he didn't do it, and it's going to cost him. It's cost him a bunch of money.
Oh yeah, millions.
And all he needed was a sandwich and a little sex, but he could have done that. Okay, well that's a whole.
No, I think that's pretty outdated. You know what? Sex in a sandwich.
Dr. Laura made a lot of money being like.
She did, but if y'all remember, this is going back probably 30 or 40 years, right? That she was on TV.
No.
How long ago?
Would you say 20 years?
20 years?
10 years?
Well, she was the first one really direct. As a psychologist, not as a sex therapist, because remember the older lady that was the sex therapist who used to tell you.
Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
Okay, but Dr. Laura.
You could never imagine her having sex. You're thinking.
That's why she was.
She was like 85 years old, like 100 years ago. She's still around.
She was smart.
She's still working.
She's smart, but Dr. Laura was like one of the very first people. And I thought
she's like a radio commentator.
Yeah, I know, but I thought she was even before like Dr. Phil.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
so she might have been. I
think she was like one of the very first ones, because Dr. Phil kind of brought that to
another one you don't want to imagine having sex with Dr. Phil.
No, Stephen. Okay, first of all,
something's wrong with that. I'm getting all turned off now.
I think we should get off the sex because you get a little too carried away with that.
Thinking about Amber.
I don't think. I know.
Damn it, Amber.
Maybe we should ask our listeners to come back in a few weeks when you're over Amber.
I don't think it's going to be a few weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for our podcast.
I keep pulling up those images on Google, and it's got a lot of them. She was a model, so there's a lot of pictures out there I have to go through still.
Okay, people are taking their time to listen to this podcast.
Okay. All right, well, okay, so let's wrap it up then. Let's bring it home, Dawn. You're all over the place.
I already did. I'm not.
Okay. No, what I think she's minimizing it. I mean, seriously, I don't think that, guys really, maybe they want sex in a sandwich, but I don't think they get married for sex in a sandwich.
I don't either. I think she's exaggerating.
It's a lot more. And if they do, well, then obviously it's going to be a problem. Because you're never going to get the sandwich if they're married to you. You might get the sex, you're not going to get the sandwich.
You know what?
There'll be no sandwich because you don't know how to make a sandwich. I never.
Okay, if we had sex every time I said yes, I will make you sandwiches every day. I did not know that was the issue.
Oh my God.
I did not know.
This is really good.
Now that I know the issue.
I did not see this episode going this poorly. This is.
I'm going to go on YouTube.
Gonna lose subscribers
I'm going to go on YouTube and learn how to make sandwiches.
This is you now. This is
I'm going to learn how to make 20 different sandwiches.
The failure of this episode is on you, Don.
I'll take it.
This is gonna
Every woman out there agrees with me.
We're gonna lose the whole thing.
Hey, if we got sex every time we made a sandwich, we'd be making some sandwiches.
Oh man, this is great. All right, we better wrap this thing up. All right. Well, anyway, so we'll come back to this book because this really is a good Marriage Confidential. Pamela Haag, I think it is, and she's really a smart woman, and she's got. You might disagree with a lot of stuff in here. I disagreed with some of it, like we just talked about, but it's thought provoking. Mm-hmm. It really makes you think.
Starts the conversation.
And this is a new world. It's a brand new world where information is everywhere. You don't have to trust anybody. You can trust but verify.
Right.
Like you never could when we grew up, but you had to trust all those people, and that was your whole world. And now the whole world is your world. Right. That's why the kids are getting smarter.
I think it's a good thing. I do.
They're getting smarter. They're changing things around, and I think they're right about it because there's a lot of things to change. And marriage is one of those things that just has not worked really across the board. But anyway, we'll come back to this at some point. It's a good conversation.
I think so.
And I just want a sandwich now because I've been talking about that. So I gotta go get a sandwich. So, all right, guys. Thanks for. Hey, make sure you subscribe. successmoneymarriage.com. Subscribe, and we'll send you every Wednesday. You'll get a new episode with all the craziness that Dawn comes up with. You got to hear what she comes up with.
But
because believe me, it's never ending.
We appreciate everybody listening.
It's insane.
We don't thank them enough.
You're just out there.
Thank everyone for listening.
I'm bringing my helmet next time. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.
Bye-bye.